Okay, let's go.
The story of the 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny. In the quiet hum of 1958 America, a small coin rolled off the presses at the United States Mint, its copper surface gleaming with a design that had already become a national symbol. At first glance, it was nothing extraordinary. A simple 1-cent piece, bronze-colored, bearing the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. But history would remember it differently. This coin was not just another cent for pocket change. It was the final chapter of an era, the last time Americans would see the beloved wheat stalks gracing the reverse of their penny. Since 1909, the wheat reverse had been a companion to the American people. For nearly half a century, it jingled in pockets during wars, rode the rails in Depression years, and passed hand-to-hand in bustling post-war America. Yet in 1958, as the presses struck over 1 billion of these coins, few could have imagined that this simple design was living its last days. The next year, in 1959, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse would appear to honor Lincoln's 150th birthday, and the wheat penny would become history. Glowing star of the design, a face and a symbol. The story of the 1958 wheat penny begins with its design. On the obverse, the coin still bore the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed in 1909 by Victor David Brenner. His interpretation of the great emancipator's profile was both noble and approachable, a reminder of Lincoln's leadership during America's darkest hours. Around Lincoln's portrait were words that echoed the nation's ideals. "In God we trust" across the top, "Liberty" on the left, and the date 1958 on the right. But it was the reverse, the two humble wheat stalks, that had given the coin its soul, curving inward like protective arms. The ears of wheat surrounded the words 1 cent. To ordinary Americans, it was a design that symbolized both prosperity and simplicity. Above, the Latin phrase "e pluribus unum" reminded them of unity. Out of many one. Below, the proud inscription "United States of America." It was a design born in the early 20th century, tied deeply to the rural roots of the country. By 1958, though America was changing, highways were replacing dirt roads, cities were growing, and industry was booming. The wheat ears were a symbol of the past, soon to be replaced by the modern monument that honored Lincoln in Washington, D.C. Hammer the mintage, billions for the people. If rarity gives a coin value, then at first glance the 1958 penny should have been worthless beyond its 1 cent denomination. That year, the mint produced staggering numbers: 252,525,000 pennies in Philadelphia, and an astonishing 800,953,300 in Denver. Combined, the mintage crossed the 1 billion mark, making this one of the most common wheat cents ever struck. In fact, the 1958 penny became so widespread that nearly every child with a piggy bank owned one. Shopkeepers handed them out as change, and they flowed through vending machines, candy counters, and gas stations. They were the coin of everyday life, unremarkable yet ever-present. Few paused to consider that they were holding the very last wheat design ever minted for circulation. Balance scale, metal, and weight, the bronze tradition. Like its predecessors, the 1958 wheat penny carried the classic bronze composition that had been standard for decades. 95% copper, with the remaining 5% a blend of tin and zinc. Each coin weighed 3.11 grams and measured 19 millimeters in diameter. This was the same sturdy metal mix that had endured since the early 20th century, except for the brief wartime steel cents of 1943. For collectors today, that bronze gives the coin its distinct reddish-brown hue. Over time, the surfaces toned, some darkening with age, others retaining a fiery red luster if carefully preserved. The 1958 penny represented the final full year of this trusted formula before America began experimenting with cheaper alloys decades later. Ordinary yet collectible. For all its history, The 1958 penny remains one of the most affordable wheat cents. Because of its enormous mintage, circulated examples are worth only a cent to 20 cents depending on where. Yet collectors seek out high-grade, uncirculated examples. Those fiery red gems that look as if they just rolled off the press. A pristine MS-65 red coin can sell for $5 to $10 or more, while the rarer proof coins, struck in Philadelphia, fetch $20 to $40 depending on quality. Proofs were never meant for circulation. They were carefully made with mirror-like surfaces for collectors, adding a layer of artistry to the coin's final year. For most people, the 1958 penny is common. But in numismatics, common coins can still hold stories worth telling, especially when they mark the close of a chapter. Magnifying glass tilted left the error that changed everything. Yet the ordinary story of the 1958 penny takes a dramatic turn with one discovery. The 1958 Doubled Die Obverse DDO. This error transformed the penny from common to legendary. On this coin, the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear with strong, visible doubling, the result of a misalignment during the die-making process. But here's the twist. Only 3 known examples of this error have ever surfaced. Just 3 out of more than 1 billion struck. That level of rarity makes it one of the most famous coins in U.S. history. Collectors regard the 1958 DDO as the crown jewel of Lincoln cents. In 2018, one example sold at auction for more than $1.1 million. From a coin worth 1 cent to a treasure valued in the millions, the 1958 Doubled Die is the ultimate reminder that even in the most common of coins, miracles of rarity can exist. Why it remains special? The 1958 penny is a coin of endings and beginnings. It was the final year of the wheat design, the farewell to a symbol that had carried Americans through world wars, depressions, and the boom years of the 1950s. In its place, the Lincoln Memorial reverse would soon rise, ushering in a new chapter for America's most humble coin. It is also a coin of extremes. On one hand, it is among the most common wheat pennies, easy to find in circulation well into the 1970s and even today in old change jars. On the other hand, the Doubled Die Obverse makes it one of the most valuable pennies in existence. No other year captures the full spectrum of numismatics, common and legendary, ordinary and extraordinary, quite like 1958. Sparkles in the end. So, when you hold a 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny, you are not just holding a cent. You are holding the last whisper of an era, a coin that closed the door on nearly 50 years of the wheat reverse. For most, it remains an inexpensive keepsake of history, but for a lucky few who discover the Doubled Die, it is a treasure worth a fortune. The 1958 wheat penny reminds us that even the smallest, most ordinary object in our pockets can carry a story of change, rarity, and legacy. It was the end of the wheat, the dawn of the memorial, and in the heart of collectors, it will always remain a legend. The story of the 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year was 1953, a time when America stood on the edge of change. The scars of the Second World War were still visible, but the nation was healing, rebuilding, and stepping into a new era of prosperity. Families were buying homes, children played in neighborhoods that grew bigger each year, and the American dream was becoming more real with each passing day. Yet in pockets and purses and soda machines and grocery counters, something small and copper-colored kept history alive: the Lincoln Wheat Penny. Among the many minted in that year, one coin stood out with its quiet mark of origin: the 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck in Denver, Colorado. Below the year, a small but significant D mint mark was placed, forever identifying where it was born. It was part of a lineage that began in 1909, when sculptor Victor David Brenner first immortalized President Abraham Lincoln on the 1-cent coin. The obverse proudly carried Lincoln's portrait, a symbol of freedom, unity, and endurance, while the reverse showcased 2 wheat stalks, their arching lines representing prosperity, growth, and America's agricultural strength. In 1953, these pennies weren't rare or precious to the average person. They jingled in lunch counters, slipped through the hands of paperboys, and clinked inside piggy banks. For a child of that era, a handful of these little coins could buy a comic book, a candy bar, or even a bottle of soda. And yet, with time, they would become more than just money. They would become silent storytellers of a nation's journey. A river of pennies from Denver. The Denver Mint worked tirelessly that year, striking an astounding 700,515,000 Lincoln Wheat Pennies. Imagine the noise of the machinery. Metal blanks fed into presses, struck with force, and ejected as newly minted coins. The coppery glow of billions of cents filled bags, barrels, and boxes, destined for circulation across the country. With such a massive production, the 1953 Wheat penny was never rare in the sense of quantity. It was everywhere, from city shops to rural farms, from the pockets of teachers to the hands of soldiers returning from Korea. But as history teaches us, not all coins survive in equal form. Many were worn down from decades of handling, their surfaces dulled, their details softened. Others, however, escaped this fate, tucked away in rolls, jars, or forgotten drawers, remaining as fresh and shiny as the day they left Denver. These survivors, blazing with their original red luster, would one day become treasures in the eyes of collectors. Balance scale, what makes it unique. Like every wheat penny, the 1953 carried precise specifications. 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, a classic bronze composition. Weight, 3.11 grams. Diameter, 19 millimeters. Edge, plain. Yet these details, so scientific and exact, take on poetic meaning in hindsight. That simple mix of metals, the weight of just over 3 grams, was enough to pass through millions of lives. From the hand of a factory worker buying lunch to the palm of a child trading marbles, each penny had a journey. But the bronze itself, prone to toning and spotting over the decades, reminds us of the passage of time. Many 1953 pennies today carry scars of oxidation, spots, brown hues, or uneven coloring, but these imperfections only add to their individuality. Money bagged the value through time. When first minted, a 1953 Lincoln Wheat penny was worth exactly 1 cent, and that's all it was meant to be. But the passage of time transformed it into more than face value. Today, its worth depends on condition, rarity, and the eyes of collectors. A circulated example, worn and brown, might be worth only 5 to 15 cents. An uncirculated coin, shining with preserved luster, could command $1 to $5. In high mint state grades, MS 65 red and above, the coin may rise to $20 to $50 plus, simply because of its beauty and scarcity in such pristine condition. A handful of extraordinary examples, proof-like or exceptionally preserved, have crossed auction blocks for hundreds of dollars. But money is only part of the story. The true value lies in what the coin represents. A link between ordinary life in 1953 and the collectors of today who treasure it. Crossmark when mistakes become treasure. Not every coin struck in Denver was perfect. In fact, errors turned some ordinary cents into exciting collectibles. The 1953 Wheat penny is famous for a few varieties that thrill numismatists. Repunched mint marks. RPMs, some coins show the D stamped more than once. A ghostly doubling or even tripling of the mint mark. Die cracks and cuts. Raised lines or extra blobs of metal appear where the dies cracked or broke, each coin carrying the story of its flawed creation. Off-center strikes. Coins struck out of alignment, their design partially missing, yet unique in their imperfection. BI error. A small die break between the B and E of Liberty, creating what looks like Lirity. For collectors, these mistakes turn an ordinary penny into a small marvel of minting history, sometimes boosting values from $10 to over $100, depending on rarity and condition. Why collectors care? At first glance, the 1953 Wheat penny may not seem rare or glamorous. It's not the 1909 SVDB, nor the 1943 copper penny worth a fortune. Yet, it holds a quiet charm that collectors respect. For those building a complete set of Lincoln Wheat cents from 1909 to 1958, the 1953 D is a must-have piece of the puzzle. What truly excites collectors, however, is the search for red, RD, examples. Coins that still blaze with their original coppery shine. Brown, BN, and red-brown, RB. Coins carry history, but a brilliant red piece feels like stepping back in time, as though the coin just rolled off. The Denver presses. Owning one is like holding 1953 in your hand, unchanged, unspoiled, and eternal. Sparkle's ending, a penny that tells a story. The 1953 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny may not be the rarest coin in American history, nor the most valuable, but it is a storyteller. It tells of a post-war America finding its rhythm, of families thriving in a new age, of children buying candy with a jingling change in their pockets. It speaks of minting perfection and imperfection, where even a small error could turn a common coin into a hidden gem. Today, collectors seek it not just for its copper shine, but for its place in the great saga of American coinage. Whether worn and brown from decades of use or blazing red as if untouched by time, the 1953 D penny connects us to the everyday life of the 1950s. In that way, it becomes more than a cent. It becomes a bridge across generations, a memory in metal, and a symbol of how even the smallest coin can hold the largest stories.